Welcome back, everybody. Cuthbert Langley here, along with Stephanie Milani with AAA and John Schroer, of course, the commissioner for the Department of Transportation here in Tennessee. We are talking holiday travel. I'm sure it's a topic on a lot of your minds today. We have been kind of running through some tips about what to expect, and the fact that they're going to have a record number of drivers on the roadways this season it's absolutely crazy, with gas prices being as low as they are. So definitely some things to be prepared for, because traffic could be heavier than normal. But T.Dot, of course, is stopping all of their construction projects from the 23rd to the 4th. So definitely some good news. So if you have any questions for us of anything regarding holiday travel, feel free to give us a call at 737+. Something we were talking about in the break that's very obvious to everybody is just how nice the weather has been, relatively speaking, here in Tennessee. Last year, of course, we all remember late January, early February, the ice and snowstorms. Even in December last year, it was quite chilly. Not the case around the southeast this year, at least.
No, not at all. And typically we do see a decline in people traveling and just out on the road. So those vehicle miles traveled tend to peak in the summer, and then gradually they taper off in the winter. But we're not seeing those cold temperatures and the harsh weather that would keep a lot of people inside. So these projections may even be, the actual numbers may even be a little bit higher.
Oh, wow.
Because, if you have grandparents, for instance, that may not like to travel because they think the roads are going to be bad, they may get out and, head over to the children's house for Christmas, but that's also keeping a lot of extra people on the roads just on a daily basis. So it's keeping those vehicle miles traveled up as well.
Absolutely. And one thing folks may notice if they travel on T.Dot, on Tennessee roads, at least around the Nashville area, is that all of the bridges, so a lot of them are brand new after Fast Fix 8.
Well, the Fast Fix 8 was a great project for us. We replaced 8 bridges over 10 weekends. Now, that's kind of a misnomer. We did replace them in 8 weekends, but we built them off-site and drove them in. And new technology, we're not the first state to do it, but this was one of the second, what we call accelerated bridge construction. And this was a second project that we had done. The first one was a small bridge on Old Hickory Boulevard here in Nashville. But this was a $64 million project, and we had a lot of issues. It's downtown, 100,000 cars a day, and we wanted to make sure we had the least amount of impact on the drivers. So, we shut the bridge down on a Friday afternoon and tear it up, chew it up, spit it out, put a new one in place, and pave it and get people going on Monday morning. So it's pretty exciting to watch it happen.
All right, and where did the idea come from? I mean, it seems like
I'd like to say it was mine, but it wasn't.
You could. Just kidding.
But I could say that, but someone would call me on it, I guess.
Probably, yeah.
It's really not necessarily a new format, but on the size it is. So it's just smart people who know the construction business, that know road construction and bridge construction, and trying to figure out the best ways to have the least amount of impact on the traveling public, and not only is it safe for the public, because we open the road up on Monday through Friday, but it's also safer for our construction people, because they're working on an area where cars aren't running through. So if you have a lane closure and and they're working on that lane that's closed, and you got traffic going by it, they're supposed to be at 40, they'll be doing 60. We have all sorts of accidents within work zone areas. I've been on construction sites for the last 4 or 5 years, and I will tell you, it's scary to be in a lane when somebody's 2 feet away from you is going 70 miles an hour. And so this is safer for everybody, and it's kind of a wave of the future if it works.
Right.
So a lot of things have to be in place for it to work. You have to be able to have a place to stage your construction nearby, and we were able to do that. You can't drive those bridges 10 miles down the road to do it. And you have to be able to have a place that all works. And we just had it was perfect setup for us, and so it was an easy decision to go. We did have to have we had to have a law passed to do a different construction technique, which we did 2 years ago in preparation for this. So it was a different type of contract letting. We did it based upon the quality, and not the quality, but the experience of a construction candidate rather than the price, because that was more important to us at that point. Someone who knew what they were doing and that they'd done it before, had a great experience, and so that would go off without a hitch, which it did. We never failed to meet our target. And there were huge penalties if they didn't meet their targets, but oftentimes we were done late Sunday night or late Sunday nights and not early Monday mornings, and so everything worked out really well. So.
Absolutely. Since there was success, I mean, are you going to start looking across the state to see perhaps if you can?
Well, we've got another project very similar to this in Memphis on 240 that we're working on right now. We're in the design stages right now. So yeah, not that we're going to look for these projects, but as a project, we will use the analysis and say, is that a good candidate when a project is ready to get started, or if it's needed, we'll look at different techniques to see what is the best for the motoring public and what's the best for the citizens of Tennessee.
Looking ahead to 2016, I mean, any big, particularly around this area, big projects coming up for you guys in terms of size and then the funding for them as well?
Well, to get into funding, just if I may, the governor just rolled out in conjunction with us a $6.1 billion backlog list and a $5.3 billion needs list. So we've been traveling around the state talking about the needs of the infrastructure in all different areas of the state. I'm sure it's going to be a great discussion at the legislature this year about what the needs are. It's an issue that we need to address. Our highways, just as an example, take the bridges we just did, people in Nashville, the 40 area. Those bridges were almost 60 years old and they were crumbling. And in fact, Charlotte, the bridge over Charlotte was crumbling down on Charlotte, and we had to put what I call diapers underneath it to catch the concrete from falling before it fell on a car. So that's happening all over the state, and so we have got to make sure that we keep up and maintain the roads that we need. And we're supposed to. Tennessee's supposed to grow by almost 2.5 million people in the next 25 years, which means there'll be a greater demand on our highways, more people traveling. We've got to make sure we're prepared for that.
And that kind of comes in now that gas prices are so low, perhaps talk more of a gas tax.
Well, there's I call it additional infrastructure funding, and how we get to it is really the legislators' requirement. They do that, and the governor. My job is to let people know what the needs are across the state. I think we're doing a great job for doing that. And if we tie in growth, we've got our major cities are just we can look out across Nashville and see 20 or 25 cranes in the air, and those all mean people moving into the downtown area. So we also have to talk about transit as an option to that, because we can't just always keep widening roads. So there's a lot of discussion about transportation in the state of Tennessee. You'll see that for the next a little bit, I would think, until we get some plan that the legislature and administration can agree to. But we've got a lot of work ahead of us if we're going to stay competitive in the Southeast for jobs and for safety. And the surrounding states have all. Not all, but most of them have passed some additional funding. Georgia, as an example, you mentioned Atlanta.
Right.
What we don't want to be in Nashville is another Atlanta.
Spaghetti Junction.
And so what happened is Georgia waited too long to fix the problem. They had this huge growth. They didn't address transportation, and now nobody wants to go through Atlanta at certain times. They just passed a huge funding for infrastructure their last legislative session, but it's almost too late. And I don't want Tennessee and Nashville to get to the point where it's too late before you can fix it. So we've got a lot of discussion ahead of us.
And what role does mass transit play in this? I mean, you briefly mentioned that just a second ago, but we had the AMP issue come up, and that didn't work.
Yeah, and I wouldn't use the word mass transit. I just use the word transit. I think there's a different technology there. I think there are things that we can do. Our job at P.2, we don't run any transit agencies. That's not our job. They're run by transit agencies like Nashville and Memphis and Knoxville and other places. And our job, we see, is to get the people from the surrounding areas into the downtown areas, and then for the transit agencies to move them around from there. So we're looking at some options right now. Mass transit, if you use that word, is so expensive. If you try to do commuter rail or light rail, I just don't see that happening anytime soon on the outskirts of Nashville. But you might see some other things like an AMP, but maybe not the AMP in Nashville and other areas. I know the mayor transit is a big issue for her, and so I think you'll see something. But it's something we got to start talking about, because people are moving. Young people like you. Do you live downtown?
I do. I live in Midtown. And
okay, there you go. And so, and young people are much more likely to use transit than old people like me, and they want to be downtown where the action is, and so. I'll say this. I say this all the time. It says that my generation, have told my children, people like you, do not drink and drive. Do not drink and drive. Do not drink and drive. And the young generation have listened. And so what they do is they've given up driving and not drinking. Right. And so they move downtown so that they can, or Uber or whatever. But they want to walk to where the action is. They want to do where the action is, and that will have an impact on transit as well.
That's a great point. And we're going to take a quick break. But coming back, we're going to talk more about the apps that are available for folks when they drive, and also just the big lesson we need to hit home, that don't drink and drive this holiday season. We've got much more coming up, but if you have any questions, give us a call, 737+. We'll see you in a sec.